at one time, the mafia was like a corporate. Prohibition gave them the money where they could become like a corporate entity. Once I started selling weed and LSD and I saw how much money I could make, I was really motivated. But, I got busted instead, so I never got to do that. In prison, you don't got a lot of choices what your career can be. I decided I wanted to become a writer. Then I had my audience inside the prison, the toughest critics. So I started writing. First, I started writing fiction because I didn't want nobody to call me a snitch.
Hey, Seth, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, as I expressed earlier, I had no idea who you were, and that's no disrespect. There's lots of people on the planet that I still don't know who they are. But I get a lot of people come to me and they're like, "Oh, you should chat with this guy. He's interesting." And then it's like he did this with funnels, or he made his first million, or he's in real estate. And then I got your bio, and I was like, "Damn, when can it?" It was like a millisecond. I sent you that link, and I went, "You got to be on this." This is what I was sent. A literal powerhouse in content creation. He has 2 documentary films on Amazon and 1 on Netflix. Written over 25 true crime gangster prison books. Won thousands of articles, Vice, Penthouse, and other publications. Founded a publishing house, Guerrilla Convict, and film studio Outlaw Films. The voice of cannabis psychedelic culture and the Quentin Tarantino of true crime documentaries. Now, that was interesting. And I was like, okay, great, I've got him in here. But then it goes into, despite spending 28 years of the last 31 years incarcerated for non-violent cannabis and psychedelic offenses. I don't know in your bio where to start, but I'm going to start with this, and I think this may be a little bit of a pokey question. But in a world now where we're accepting cannabis and marijuana, especially being in California where there's more weed shops than there are Starbucks, do you feel a bit bitter about spending time inside for something that's now legal?
I mean, I've been asked this question a lot, and I would say no. As a 52-year-old man, I don't feel bitter at all. When I first got locked up for probably like the first 5 years, I was very, very angry. Because what's happening now, I believe this the whole time since I was like 15. When I first got into cannabis and psychedelics, I was like, and I came up in the 80s, so they're like, the war on drugs, this is your brain on drugs with, the whole Nancy Reagan, just say no. And I knew people. I grew up in California. I knew people that were on heroin, people 4 or 5 years older than me. I knew people that smoked cannabis and did psychedelics. And so like the government saying that these substances are equal to heroin, I never believed it from day one. I was like, this is some bullshit. They're lying to us. And it turns out, they lied to us a lot. But so I just stood on my beliefs. I would tell people I wasn't a criminal. I was an outlaw. I broke laws that I thought were wrong.
So you're right. Maybe as we get older, we get a little bit more quieter, and maybe that's a sign of maturity. I actually had this conversation with Rick Ross, the real Rick Ross, Freeway Rick Ross, and he said that he spent most of his life in jail for something that now people are building mansions for. So it's kind of comical, irritating, and annoying on that side. But you spent all of that time in there, of which you could have chosen to become very angry, and let's be serious, a career criminal out of it, but it unlocks something in your creativity. And you, as it openly said, wrote thousands of articles, you wrote books on crime, gangster. Why focus on, shall we say to a lot of people, the darker side of life to be your focus point within your articles and creativity?
I mean, because that's where I was. So
is that why, though? Just because of your location, or you just found it more interesting?
I mean, that's why I had access to all the criminals. I mean, I like gangster movies and stuff like that anyhow. I mean, I already like that stuff. I mean, I kind of, was like the wannabe, Jim Morrison, like the poet rebel, that was kind of my thing, and selling drugs, and using substances was just a side to it. But, yeah, I definitely, I use that. So I use that to do everything that I did because prison is boring, and like I say, I was already into that stuff. I had a ready-made audience, a tough audience to read my stuff as I wrote, but I also had access, if I want to write about a guy from New York, oh, there's some dudes from his neighborhood right over there, if it's not them, but definitely that anger, what could have turned into bitterness, everything that I've done, that's the drive. I channeled that anger into the work. Then I had my audience inside the prison, the toughest critics. So I started writing. First, I started writing fiction because I didn't want nobody to call me a snitch. So I was writing real stuff, but I had to write it as fiction. That's the only way, things change, as I got more stature to my name and people recognized me. And then, these other magazines came out and hip hop, started kind of glorifying the street legends, from the crack era, like in the mid 90s with gangster rap. So, stuff loosened up. But yeah, my first book, Prison Stories, it's all true. It's like semi-biographical, but I wrote it as fiction because of where I was at.
Hey, I'm sorry for interrupting this podcast. I know it's a brilliant one, but I wanted to talk to you about your room, your connections. Now, we know full well that great things come from great connections and great rooms. Now, if you're in a room full of people that will challenge you, inspire you, motivate you, and support you, then great. But if not, then maybe I have the solution for you. Head on over to stevesims.com, look up Sims Distillery there, and join our community of creative disruptors, those that are only not there to help you and motivate and actually give you information, but to support and answer questions. We very much vet the room to make sure that we support each other's growth. We all want each other to grow. So if you want to be in the right room, head on over to stevesims.com/Sims Distillery, and I'll see you inside my room. Enjoy the rest of the show. So you're writing a book in prison and then getting your inmates to read. That has got to be the toughest audience in the planet to read your stuff.
Yeah, because if they don't like it, they'll tell you straight up. They'll be like, "This is garbage," But at the same time, it's a ready-made audience for what I wanted to do. And like in prison, people got time, so they can read. Like these are dudes, they didn't read any books on the street, be it career criminals, drug dealers, gangbangers, organized crime, mafia, drug addicts. I mean, a lot of drug addicts in prison. So, be it whatever they were, they didn't read on the street, but in prison they could read. And I was, that's kind of how I kind of honed my craft in prison, but I just didn't write. I got associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and master's degree through correspondence while I was in. So I learned to write. I was creative, but I learned to write. I honed my craft. Getting that master's degree. However many credit hours that was. It took me a long time, about 10 years, till I was doing through correspondence in complete chaos. Imagine trying to get study for college degrees and write stuff. In prison, which is like I can only compare it to being on the block is like being at a football game. Like that's how loud it is at times. And I had to focus. So I laser focus. I used my anger to laser focus on all these projects because once I got recognized on the inside, for my writing, just sharing it and letting people read it, this is before my books came out or any articles. Then, I wanted to go start sending it outside and see, if I can make a career. I mean, in prison, you don't got a lot of choices what your career can be. And I even college courses, you can go like the business route or you can kind of go the liberal arts route, the humanities. So I went the liberal arts humanities because I decided I wanted to become a writer, while I was in there, as I was, so I kind of learned. It's not like I'm, self-taught, I had a lot of instruction and crafted my trade.
So you had the credentials and the credibility of being able to speak about this life, obviously from living it and being in this environment. And then you step out. When did you get out?
January 2015.
Okay, so January 2015, you got out. Then you started looking at, okay, how can I extend this? How can I bring it forward? You got the articles, you got the books. But then you get into filmmaking. And you've got a lot of great response. You've got 2 documentaries at the moment. You've got Dope Men and Nightlife. What are they individually about?
All right, so Dope Men is about this 100-year drug war, that started way back in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when they formed the Bureau of Narcotics after Prohibition ended. Prohibition was a model for modern day drug enforcement. It was just a model. Now it's stretched like 100 years. People always talk about the drug war. The drug war didn't just start. It's been going on for 100 years. This is a 100 years war. So who the dope men are the people on the opposite side of the law on this 100-year, war. And in the beginning, it was the mobsters. It was the mafia guys. It was the Lucky Lucianos. It was the Jack Legs Diamond. It was the Arnold Rothsteins. It was the Fatty Walshes. These were the guys, that they had the foresight to know that prohibition was going to end. But, by this time, before prohibition, the mafia was like these mom and pop operations, right? Prohibition gave them the money where they could become like a corporate entity. You know what I'm saying? So it was a big difference. Once you get money, that's how, in this country, whoever has the money is basically in power. I mean, that's how it goes. That's capitalism. But, at one time, the mafia was like a corporate. They were like a corporation. And prohibition gave them the money to do that. And so they were looking like all corporations or people who have money or even governments, like once, your money's going to dry up or prohibition's in it, you can't make money. They were looking, what are we going to start using now? What product? Just like any regular corporation or business, it's been done. That's the American way. So they did that and they got into heroin before prohibition even ended. And there's all these famous mobsters, like the ones I mentioned, Lucky Luciano, Jack Legs Diamond, Arnold Rothstein. Like these dudes were dope dealers. They were dope men, but nobody, they weren't portrayed as that, or in history, they haven't been portrayed as that. So I'm just trying to kind of show, like with White Boy, we exposed corruption in Detroit all the way up to the mayor, in White Boy being locked up so long. And so, in this dope man, I'm trying to expose this. I'm trying to, history has been slanted, whatever, sometimes because of entertainment, like The Godfather, like this myth, man of honor, we don't deal dope. That's BS. That's how they made their money all these years, up until recently in the 80s when the government pretty much dismantled them, and they're not the powerhouse that they were.
So that's on. What was the reason behind doing it? Did it just aggravate you that history had maybe slanted it, and you decided to actually release it so that people knew, or was there something behind you that was the catalyst that fired you up to do this particular subject on doping?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm biased because I did 21 years in prison for drugs. So, whatever. But I make shit I want to watch. I make stuff I want to watch. So I look out there like sometimes I'm looking for stuff and I can't find anything I want to watch. I mean, there's some stuff. I like some docs, I like Cocaine Cowboys, The Thin Blue Line, Earl Morris, one of the originals, even like Making a Murderer, a lot of that stuff, man. It's good. It's entertaining. But, the stuff I'm making is cool, man. I mean, you watch Dope, man. That shit is cool as f. So, I mean, it tells a history, the way it's laid out, visually, how it looks. I like to do this collage of and juxtapositions of media. When I make these things, I want animation, I want the interviews, I want the archival footage. I want the news clips. I want the news reports, and I like to mash that all together. But in a cinematic way. That's kind of my style.
So what did you lean on with nightlife?
So nightlife, actually, I started shooting nightlife before Dope Man. Oh, and let me say once again, Dope Man would not be, it wouldn't have come to life without the writer, the writer producer, Christian Cipollini. It all comes from him. He brought it to me. I just like, this is cool as, and we made it look, awesome, with badass stories. So, but Christian came with the original script and idea. So, I'm not taking credit. I didn't create it. I helped him shape it. Okay. So, I just wanted to say that. I forgot to mention his name. So nightlife, though, when I was shooting White Boy with Sean Reck in Transition Studios, I wanted to, become a director. I was a writer producer on that. I come from the writing background, as we talked about, and so I needed to know how to make a documentary. So I brought Sean Reck at Transition Studios, the White Boy story. I'd written about him for like Vice News, The Fix, a whole bunch of places while I was in, and he liked it. Pitched it to him, and we did the doc, and he like took me under his wing and taught me everything. So he's like, I was like, I need to start a doc. I want to start a doc right now. He's like, you can find something local, inexpensive. Nobody's going to give you funding right now. Get some college kids, rent some cameras as you can, and find something local that you can just shoot where you don't got to travel or because that's with documentary, we got 5 people here, go here, go here, multiple trips. That costs a lot of money. All that travel, room and board when you got to bring a crew. So I found this story here. I wrote about this guy named the Reverend Kim McCoy. I did a story for him for Vice, probably around 2015, called "The People Who Walk St. Louis's Most Dangerous Streets." So when I needed something local, after Sean Reck broke down to me what I should do, I reached back out to Rev and we talked about it and we did a doc. So I followed him. What Nightlife does, that's his ministry. They walk the streets. They call it a ministry of presence. They walk the streets Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights in the worst part of North City, St. Louis. That's why St. Louis is always in the top 5 murder capital. A bunch of gangs, drug strips, prostitute, all types of stuff, homeless, drug addicts. So he walks the streets from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights in the hot spots. He's a violence interrupter, but he also he tries to get the homeless in shelter. He, kind of tries to get the drug addicts in rehab. He carries Narcan, for overdoses. They bring sandwiches, food, water, fruit, blankets, socks, underwear, anything like a homeless person who's living in the streets might need. And we recorded this stuff for like 2 years and then we fashioned it into a film. And, that's what Nightlife meant. Real beautiful film, very well shot by the cinematographer named Dave Bohr. Dave Bohr and Levi Barnes were the editors on the project, and so it's just real beautiful film. Not as Dope Man is a lot sexier. A lot of people into the mafia, the mystique, and also, and a lot of people are into correcting history. But Nightlife, just a beautiful kind of call to action film, kind of showing like this is what's going on in some parts of America. It's crazy. Like this homelessness and these people that live in the street, it's just like a totally different life. Like no IDs, no money, no address, nothing. And they just kind of like survive out there on the margins. And it's sad. It's like, what's the matter with our country? This is just in St. Louis. So this is probably everywhere across the nation, especially somewhere like LA, you see Skid Row and all that stuff. So I just think it's crazy. So I'm trying to show that. And it's all about resources. Some of these areas, they just need to pump resources into them. And maybe things will change. You never know. But if you just leave it the same, so that's kind of what Nightlife. But it also shows how this dude, the Reverend Kim McCoy, is a man on a mission to save his community. So it's kind of like a ode to him. Like him being a hero. Because to me, he's like a knight in shining armor. I mean, who else would do this stuff? Sometimes he goes out by himself.
I like the way. I like the way you talk about you're really making it. You're putting a picture in our head of what this location's like, how graphic, how dark, how depressing, how on the edge of their life it can be. But you're summing it up as a beautiful movie, and I have to admit that's kind of got me teased as to see this as a beautiful movie. To see this person moving in, and you're right, we're in LA. Homelessness is a major problem here. I don't know how to solve it, and it would appear people smarter than me don't know how to solve it, and the problem therefore keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But maybe if we can start seeing that people can do something about it, like the gentleman you're talking about that's actually willing to walk the streets, maybe we realize we're a bit closer to the solution than what we first think. Now, both of these movies, Dope Man and Nightlife, what are they? Amazon, Netflix? Where are these movies?
So they're both on Amazon. Like you can rent it or buy it. It's not streaming on Amazon Prime, so you got to rent it or buy it. It's like on Google Play. Dope Man is actually on Tubi now too, so you can watch it for free on Tubi. You just got to watch the ads. But you can rent it if you want to rent it. It's like $4.99. If you buy it, I think it's $7.99. And then Nightlife is like $2.99 to rent, $9.99 to buy on Amazon. Probably around the same on Google Play.
All right, so you've released both of these movies. Are you still writing? Is there more production in the works?
Yeah, I got like 8 projects in motion right now. Like and a couple more series. So Dope Man, that's gonna be 10 episodes. I'm releasing them standalone because I don't have the funding to just make all of them at once. Because that'd cost a lot of money and I'd have to have a lot bigger staff than I have now. Maybe one day, but that's gonna be 10 episodes. The Psychedelic Revolution, which is about to come out, it'll be out hopefully by the end of September. We're in the final stages of getting that ready. I've already screened that a couple of times. I've got really good, reception and real positive. A lot of people like it. So it's this series is Psychedelic Revolution, but this one is called The Secret History of the LSD Trade. So this is going to be like 3 story arcs. So 3 episodes in this 10 episode series, but it's going to be the first 3. And it tells this story of, the first episode is about to come out, tells a story of, like LSD, like where it came from, how it went through the 60s, all the names that we've heard, like Merry Pranksters, Bear Owsley Stanley, Timothy Leary, Ken Kesey, just all these famous names. If you're familiar with psychedelic or Grateful Dead culture, I like to call it Grateful Dead land. And I interviewed Carolyn Mount Garcia, that was Jerry Garcia's wife, Roni Stanley, that was Bear Owsley's partner. I just got really close to a lot of people. This is going to be phenomenal. So this is actually the next thing that's going to come out. And that's going to be a series. And then I have this other beautiful documentary called A Tortured Mind, The Reality of Post-Incarceration Syndrome. It's about a really good friend of mine who he's dead now. He overdosed and tragically died. But this film just shows how, we put people. I mean, this kid was a rich kid from Santa Barbara. Yeah, he had drug issues and stuff like that, maybe a little mental illness, but, not like he was a bad person. He just struggled with his demons like a lot of people. So, he went to prison. He did 5 years in the feds and then 3 years in the state, for drug-related crimes and stuff like that. And it just exacerbated his drug addiction and his mental illness, witnessing the violence, prison can be a lot it can lead, a lot of PTSD. People suffer from PTSD, not everybody, but, some people do. And then they just throw you back out to the street, with no help, nothing. Here's $200 in a bus ticket, no deprogramming, no checking to see your mental state, no type of, aftercare. So, and a lot of these dudes get out. I know we've heard these stories again and again and again. So I made this film, maybe if the prisons, or our government would have something in place and throw more resources at helping these people, maybe they would turn their lives around and they wouldn't come back. Maybe they wouldn't die like Ryan did, leaving 2 kids, two kids under 5. So, I'm just trying to show this through Ryan's story, but, the film's about, the reality of post-incarceration syndrome. It's just told through the lens of his personal story.
Do you know, I actually, I work with a group called Defy Ventures, and we actually go into level 4 maximum security prisons, and we actually do entrepreneurial training and programs with the incarcerated. So when they come out, they've already got some kind of advantage with understanding how to set up a business, what they can get involved in. But one of the biggest surprises I had was most people, and this is a horrible statement to make, they don't care. You went inside for a crime, do your time, and then get on with life. It's that little bit where they've had to get adjusted to a very violent concrete jungle. And then one day that door opens and they're told to bugger off, exactly as you say, with $200 and a bus ticket. And then just dropped in the middle of town, right, get off, don't do it again. Kind of in that environment, what are their choices? They've only known this structure for 5 years, and then the doors opened and they're kicked out to the curb. It's a very, very tough situation. But again, a lot of people will be well, why should I care? These are incarcerated people. I hope that movie that you're producing does change people's ideas, because I'm talking to you now who has taken your time. Now, it was a non-offensive crime, but you took your time and turned it into a creative product that is getting other people to watch, fulfill, be entertained, be educated, and be challenged. And you're more creative now than before you went in. So you've been able to take it and grow from it. And hopefully you can help other people realize that, hey, given the chance, these people, it may be the turning that they needed. I'm wondering, had you not been locked up, what you would be doing with your life now? Because I'm wondering, would it be the creative force that it is now?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I was a little creative. I like play guitar, playing in a band. Wrote songs, wrote some poetry. I probably started what I would have termed the Great American Novel, a couple times, but never finished it. Never even wrote more than 30 pages. So I think I wanted to be creative, but I was more business minded. Once I started selling weed and LSD, and I saw how much money I could make. I was really motivated. I was just kind of getting a handle. I mean, I was young. I was like 20 years old, so I was just kind of like figuring out like what I had put together, and I was like, man, I can make some serious money. All I got to do is keep this going. But I got busted instead, so I never got to do that. But I think if I didn't go to prison, because I knew dudes that were weed and psychedelic dealers, and they went to prison. You know, yeah, I could have made a lot of money, and I probably would have. At that time, I was thinking like businesses. I was like thinking like property. I was even thinking like washaterias. Car washes. I was thinking
Yeah.
about stuff like that. That was kind of like my mindset. So I wanted to make a lot of cash so I can invest. And I look at it now. I had really good instinct because I was in Northern Virginia, right outside DC, and I was looking at like properties in DC, kind of like borderline hood properties, because a lot of DC back then, man, it was from the cracker, it was like war zones and stuff. So I was actually looking at property like 88, 89 and stuff that I could have got for like probably like 20, 30,000, like now. But who knows if you hold on to it that long? But I just look at that. I'm like, man, I wanted to do that at that time if I had the money generated, and if I could have got something like that and kept it. I mean, that 20, 30,000 in whatever, 25 years turned into like, a million plus.
Yeah, but you can't play that game. You can't play that. Oh, if I'd have bought that, what if? We've all been down there.
Yeah.
My granddad in England, he lived in a council house, and which was like a government living place. And they did a change, and they turned around, and for anyone that had lived in that property for, I don't know what it was something like 18, 20 years, you got the chance to buy it. And I remember he got asked if he would buy it, and he was offered it for £15,000. And being the big hothead that he was, we were like, wow, are you going to buy your house for £15,000? Because everyone knew it would be worth a lot of money. He literally looked at us and he went, no, I'm going to hold out. They'll lower the price. And he was convinced they would lower the price for him. It obviously never happened, and I think the place is probably about $500,000 now. But, you can't play the what-if game. But for you, you got locked up. You've come out. You've taken everything you've learned as education. You've taken it as an environment to actually grow your knowledge of that side of the world. And now you're putting it on documentaries. I think that's great. How can people follow you? I don't want to lose on this. We know about the movies. We know about Nightlife and Dope Man on Amazon. Purchase it, rent it, but watch it. How can people follow you and keep an eye on what you're up to?
I'm on Instagram at Seth Ferranti, Twitter at Seth Ferranti, Facebook at Seth Ferranti. I also got a Facebook, Outlaw Films. I got a YouTube channel, Seth Ferranti's True Crime, where we post like little shorts and stuff like that. Outtakes from some of the films and stuff like that. I got a Substack, is my writing platform, at Seth Ferranti's True Crime. And, I got a TikTok. I got a TikTok too, Outlaw Films TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn. So I'm pretty much everywhere, under my name. Yeah, and I want to say, to anybody, if you do decide to rent Dope Men or Nightlife from Amazon, leave a review, man, because the reviews are big. I'm an independent studio, Outlaw Films. I'm competing against like the Netflixes, the HBO Max, the big Hollywood studios. I mean, they got a lot more money, so that's who I'm competing against. So any little thing, if you like what I'm doing, if you like me, if you think I'm cool, if you think my work is cool, yeah, leave a review, man. That stuff is big. That stuff really helps me and will enable me to keep doing what I'm doing. And I want to bring you these stories. I want to bring the world these stories. This is my brand. Yeah, I'll admit I'm biased, but I'm telling you stories from a different point of view, not the mainstream point of view, which I think is the real point of view. But, that's anybody can argue this way or that. But, watch it. I got a lot more stuff coming out. I'm just beginning, like I say. I'm going to be like Quentin Tarantino in this doc game.
Well,
we're going
to put all the links. We're going to put all the show notes. We're going to put all the links of where they can follow you on social, where they can find the movies, and where they can keep in touch with you. Seth, you're entertaining as hell. Congratulations. I have not watched your programs, but I am committed here that I am going to watch both docs and you'll see me sticking a review because I know reviews matter. I wish you all the best, and thank you very much for joining me today.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Nice conversation.
Well, that was another episode of the Art of Making Things Happen podcast with me, your host, Steve Sims. If you like it, you know the scoop. Subscribe, tell your friends, share it around. Let them get benefit from this juice. And of course, if you want to change the room you're in, join Sims Distillery. Jump over to stevedsims.com/Sims Distillery, or you can find a link directly from that website. That's the room where creative disruptors get together to actually help each other become better. If you've got standards or you want higher standards, join the right room. See you next time.